Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the SG3 Show. I'm Shravan Ganavarapu. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. We got a big show here planned for you. First of all, to all my fans who have reached out to me and asked how I've been doing since I've been off the air here of YouTube, I want to thank you for your support. As I mentioned in my previous video, I've just been out with a lot of work going on, and glad to be back here. But I have to come on for some really important stuff. As you guys know, there's been a lot of news here. And as an NFL fan, I feel like at this point, might as well stick to football because that's what I can do. But I can cover other topics if necessary. Shout out to the Boston Celtics for taking out the Los Angeles Lakers. I know Charles Barkley's happy, and Chuck, I salute you. But we begin today with some breaking news here from the night. There's a lot of stuff going on here, so let's get down to it. There you see it right there. The Buffalo Bills and quarterback Josh Allen. He has received a massive contract extension. That's right. The Bills Mafia has their quarterback, as you guys can see down below. It's 6 years, $330 million with a $250 million guaranteed deal. That's according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. The deal now keeps Allen in Buffalo through the 2030 season. As most folks saw, Josh Allen did win the MVP, although some were very, very disrespectful, saying Lamar should have won it. I think it could have gone either way, like them both, but whatever. Allen threw for over 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 531 yards on the ground, 12 additional scores as well. Allen led the team to the AFC Championship this past season before they fell short to the AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. And we all know what happened in the Super Bowl. We don't really need to get too much into that. This comes after the Bills have extended defensive end Greg Rousseau on a massive deal, but also they released former Super Bowl MVP and the man they thought could really put them over the top. That would be defensive end Von Miller. As it pertains to the MVP talk, Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, it's really a give or take who could have won it for reasons that I will not get into. Folks thought that Josh Allen did not deserve it. Lamar Jackson did. Honestly, either one of them could have won it. I got no problem with it. Congratulations to Josh Allen on it. It's a big deal for him. All eyes now turn to whether or not this man can actually lead the Bills to the Super Bowl. He's been on the verge several times, but Joe Burrow has knocked him out, and Patrick Mahomes has notably knocked him out. So the question now remains, what's next for the Buffalo Bills? Ultimately, it comes down to whether or not they can execute in the postseason. Keep in mind, this franchise lost a lot of pieces last offseason, including wide receiver Stephon Diggs to the Houston Texans. But they still managed to make the AFC Championship game. The question now is, what is Brandon Beane going to do with Sean McDermott as free agency is getting ready to open up? Time will tell how that will go down. But Josh Allen, 6 years, $330 million. He's no doubt the franchise. He is the face of the franchise in Buffalo. We've seen a lot of teams worried about where their star players are going to go and whether or not they're going to be able to retain them. We're seeing it in Cincinnati right now with T. Higgins. We'll get to more of that in just a moment. But ultimately for Josh Allen, it is what it is. And you know what? Salute to you. But also, once again, like that's breaking news. There's another piece of breaking news I think you guys might want to pay attention to. You see it right down there? Yep, Seahawks. DK Metcalf, after a standoff and after the Seahawks traded quarterback Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders, the Seahawks will add more draft capital when they send DK Metcalf to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a second-round pick in next month's NFL draft. This is quite a shocker because now the Seahawks are losing their quarterback and their top receiver from last year, Tyler Lockett's also gone, leaving Jackson Smith-Njigba the lone weapon in Seattle, possibly with Kenneth Walker. Meanwhile, Metcalf is getting a 5-year, $150 million extension with the Steelers. This is unprecedented, at least for Seattle. They don't really make these kind of crazy moves, but it is what it is. Metcalf almost had a fourth consecutive 1,000-yard season, just 8 yards shy. And, well, Unfortunately for him, he's not going to get that, but he does get a fresh start. The question is whether or not him and George Pickens are going to fight over number 14. Over 6 years with the Seahawks, Metcalf went over 6,000 yards and nearly 50 touchdowns, 48 to be exact. So with these new picks coming in, the question now is, does Seattle move up the board to potentially get a quarterback? Because the top two, Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, are expected to go in the top 10. If Seattle wants to make a move, they certainly have the capital now to make such a deal, but time will tell what happens. In the end, though, the Seahawks are making a move, and the Steelers are getting a weapon for whomever the quarterback could be. Could it be Russell Wilson? Could it be Justin Fields? Or do the Steelers wish to draft and develop a quarterback and potentially have better success than what they had with Kenny Pickett, who, by the way, just went to the Eagles and won a Super Bowl and even got some snaps in the Super Bowl? So, again, time will tell where that goes. But DK Metcalf on the move. Seattle is looking for a fresh start. Head coach Mike McDonald has his work cut out for him, but Mike Tomlin, another talented but possibly disgruntled wide receiver. Now, in fairness to him, neither of DK Metcalf or George Pickens were like Antonio Brown. But it is a little bit alarming that you continue to take chances on this. And in fairness to the Steelers, they've always known how to get wide receivers. So if they feel you can play, they'll take you, and they're not afraid to get rid of you as early as possible. See Chase Claypool, for which the Bears are still kind of repenting in. Whatever the case may be. But moving on in the NFL, there's even more news here. We'll get to that right now. Davante Adams, a 2-year contract with the Los Angeles Rams, and Harold Landry going to the Patriots. These are some pretty big moves here. Well, for one, Davante Adams coming off a season with the Jets in which you would have thought it was the New York Packers, just no gold. It's green and white. Aaron Rodgers is out under new head coach Aaron Glenn. As for Adams, he goes to the Rams, but questions still remain as to what they will do now with Cooper Kupp. Does Kupp go to free agency, or does he possibly get traded? No word on that yet, at least from what I understand. It's possible they will move on. That's what the word around the league is, but we'll see how that goes. Meanwhile, for Harold Landry, a very productive run stuffer joining the Patriots and a former Tennessee Titan, meaning new head coach Mike Vrabel has some familiarity with him. Ultimately, it just comes down to what they will do to help Drake May, but it's not a bad idea to get a productive pass rusher / run stuffer. It's always about the front seven, or at least this case, the front four. Now, Vrabel will likely play a 3-4 defense, but don't be surprised to see just a regular D tackle and nose tackle and Landry and possibly, I think it's Anthony Jennings, I can't be 100% sure here, or whoever the other edge rusher is going to be, putting some pressure up front, because the Super Bowl certainly showed that with the Eagles under Vic Fangio. All in all, those are some pretty big deals. Meanwhile, as if big isn't enough, how about Myles Garrett, folks? He's getting a massive contract right now. The holdout in which he potentially was going to be traded from the Cleveland Browns, all of a sudden, agent Nicole Lynn is able to get him a massive contract extension, and he's now the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. Could you just imagine, though, if he was traded to a team like the Eagles or the Commanders? Now, the folks here in D.C. would go ballistic because Myles Garrett could put that defense over the top if he had come here. But as of right now, we can scratch that off the list. The Eagles are likely going to have to retain their own. It's possible they could retain Josh Sweat with some of the money they could save there, or Mekhi Becton. They already retained Zach Bond, their superstar linebacker. But Myles Garrett would have made this defense pretty much unstoppable. The question is, who would they trade? They probably would have to trade an offensive superstar of their own, and I don't think Howie Roseman's thinking about that right now. I think he's probably just going to draft and develop his own guys and keep them healthy in that culture. So good news for the Bengals. Pardon me, the Browns. They get that. But meanwhile, for the Bengals, there's a lot of stuff going on with them. Jamar Chase is still in not able to get his contract right now, but T. Higgins is still in a standoff. He's currently on a franchise tag for the second straight season. All eyes now turn to whether or not they can get a long-term deal done, although history with Cincinnati would suggest otherwise. What do you think right now? Do the Bengals get the deal done with T. Higgins? Do they get Jamar Chase done? Because if not, there's a chance Joe Burrow could want out. As ESPN Stephen A. Smith reported on First Take, there's a possibility Joe Burrow could want out of Cincinnati. And frankly, who would blame him at this point? They're continuing to be cheap. The year they went to the Super Bowl, folks will say, oh, they spent money to get some pass rushing help and whatever. Yeah, sure. But what about that offensive line? They got a good D line that year, but the offensive line could not hold up for one more play. Had it held up, in all likelihood, Joe Burrow hits Jamar Chase for a game winner. And frankly, I don't see the Bengals doing what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers did and letting a Cooper Kupp play go way downfield and let up for a big play. Had it happen, but in the end, it was blue and gold confetti and not orange and black in SoFi. So we'll see how that goes there. But again, we can only speculate. With free agency scheduled to open up there, teams and free agents are getting set to make massive deals. One of them being Drew Dahlman, the center for the Falcons, likely to go to Chicago. After all, they did sign Joe Thuney and Jonah Jackson through trades. Jackson coming for a 6th-round pick. Thuney, a 4-time champion with the Patriots and Chiefs, going for a future 4th. The Bears are doing what they can to get Caleb Williams upright, but they still have a massive hole in that center position and the left tackle. Yes, I know Braxton Jones is there, but don't be surprised to see them make a move there. Darnell Wright might be the only guy that's locked in from the previous year that's going to start, and fans can feel very comfortable with that. But this is a make-or-break season now for Caleb Williams. The excuses are out for him. The former Heisman Trophy winner and number 1 overall pick out of USC has his work cut out for him, but that's why they pay you. And for Chicago, they need this thing to work out. Ben Johnson, their new head coach who took over from Matt Eberflus, who, let's be real, was the worst coach in Chicago Bears history. You can't go anywhere but up, but you got to develop Caleb Williams. And in fairness to Ben Johnson, he wants that O-line stacked. I like it. But that can't be the only stacking. It's offensive and defensive lines. If anything has learned from this past season, particularly from the last Super Bowl, you need an offensive and defensive line, both, to hold up. The Chiefs thought they had it. They had a few guys, but not enough. 3 guys could hold. Joe Thuney, even though he moved to left tackle, he tried and it didn't work out. Had he stayed at guard, he probably wouldn't have had too much of an issue. Mike Caliendo looked a lot like Frank Caliendo out there. Funny name, but as an offensive lineman, not good. Creed Humphrey, his resume speaks for itself. Trey Smith did get the franchise tag, will likely get the extension. Jawan Taylor, though, right tackle, nah. Chiefs got a lot of work to go there. But, hey, what do we know, folks? This is the SGIII Show with some of the latest news in the NFL. Hopefully, I'll start getting you guys daily content, just one show a night. See if we can make this a real thing. Might not be many topics, just be a couple of things that I've read through the day. Won't be as fancy as what you saw today, but hey, the content is content. As always, please make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. Thank you so much for watching. As always, this is the SGIII Show. I'm Shravan Ganavarpu, and we'll see you guys later, hopefully tomorrow night. Have a good night, everybody.